Welcome back again to a long overdue vintage computer feature. About this very generic PC clone. It's labeled DataSys 2, which doesn't mean a whole lot to anybody. It does have that marking on it as well, which we'll come back to in a minute. You can see the nice big gaping hole in the bottom. The standard set of clone controls, reset switch, and turbo, as well as a key lock. If we come around to the back, you can see the expansion card slots. This right here is actually a data acquisition card, which I didn't even realize was still in here, but that can probably come out. There's no reason for it to be there. There is the video card, which includes a parallel port. Rather interestingly, the system does not have a serial port at all. It's just the video in parallel, which is actually going to be coming out of there. And there's a slot cover that's been installed improperly. Here's a keyboard connection, 5-pin DIN, and a classic full-size AT power supply with the red switch on the side. Got a serial number, imported and distributed by MicroBytes Electronics. I bet they're no longer in business. But there's something about this machine that is more than meets the eye, because it is a mix of old and older. What do I mean by that? Now let's go ahead and pull up the cover and take a look inside, and I'll show you what I mean by that. Taking a look inside, and again, we have what basically looks like just a boring, bog standard clone case. Not much to it. But again, some of you who are eagle-eyed will have already noticed what's so special about this. It starts at the power supply here, 270 watts. Remember when that was quite a bit. This right here is actually the defect map from the old hard drive, which we'll get into here in just a moment. There's a ribbon cable, bunch of ribbon cables here for 3.5-inch floppy, 1.44 meg, again, nothing special. Below that's a 1.2 meg, again, nothing special. You can see an outboard battery pack here. And it looks like I'm going to make the assumption that there's a diode in there, because that is actually connected straight into the motherboard. You can see right there. Which brings me to what makes this special. See that back there? A little plastic standoff, as well as the fact that this connector, I don't know exactly what it is, does not really reach the board. It's not the only one. This motherboard is not original to this machine. This is an upgrade board. My best guess is that this would have originally been a 286, at best, maybe even an XT class system. But this now is, I don't actually really know who manufactured this particular board. Actually, yes, I do. This is a Biotech board, which I believe later turned into BioStar. See there. Unfortunately, you will not be able to read it, but that right there is what makes this thing special. That is the microprocessor, and assuming that I actually know what this is correctly, because it could be any number of things, that is a 40 megahertz 386DX, which would make this a fully 32-bit system through and through, although not quite. Those are 16-bit ISA and one 8-bit ISA there with the I/O card attached to it, which is nothing special. I think it's like a 20, or it's actually probably more than 25 pins. In fact, it's actually way more than 25 pins. Maybe 50 pins at best, like a DB50 or something like that. general purpose acquisition and communications card. The other thing that makes this kind of unique is that this was in active service up until 4 years ago. The hard drive had failed long ago, but it was still actively being used until it was replaced with a Pentium 166 system. Yes, even in 2018 at the time, which I guess was actually 5 years ago now, but you know, whatever. I refuse to believe that that was 5 years ago. It feels like it was just the other day. Now, this was set to the side, and now I think they've decommissioned. I've since changed departments, so I no longer work for the same department this would have been used in. My understanding is that the equipment that this used to drive has been decommissioned because it's just so old that it's not really worth having anymore, and so this ended up getting tossed out by the wayside. I rescued this along with many, many other systems that I had helped prepare for use as spares. That was pretty nice to get some of those back again. Didn't get them all. There's a couple of them that I wish I probably would have saved, including a big, giant industrial computer, but at the same time, what am I going to do with a big, huge industrial computer? But this thing was only really very roughly converted. And I think part of that might have had to do with the fact that maybe the original motherboard failed. That's certainly a possibility. I would imagine that's probably the only reason why the motherboard was replaced, because I can't imagine performance being a problem, considering it was just driving I forget exactly what the specs of it were, but it was driving a Photomask step and repeat camera right across from the Photomask pattern generator, which is another system that I've got in my possession now. That one is original and in very good shape, and eventually I'll have to make a video about it. You can see, I'm going to see if I can verify what that CPU is. Yeah. 486 DX40. Sorry, 386 DX40. You can probably see there. No math coprocessor, but that's not too big of a deal. I can easily add that. And I probably will. There might be a jumper on this board somewhere that I got to enable. Unfortunately, I don't actually have the jumper map for this board. And I'm not really going to know what it is because there's no real discernible markings on it anywhere. The RAM is maxed out. It's got 30-pin SIMs, which I'm kind of surprised to see on a motherboard that has such a high-performance CPU. I would have expected to see 72-pin SIMs, but this is probably a roughly converted... Actually, no, it wouldn't be because it's a DX, so that would be 32-bit through and through. So kind of interesting. I do have another board sitting around here, and of course now I've buried it. It's sitting in there. That does have a math coprocessor on it. It's awfully tempting to pull that coprocessor off that and put it into this, because that other board is not going to work ever again. So it had a battery on it that leaked and destroyed a bunch of stuff. Fortunately, this one does not appear to have had any damage at all from a leaking battery. It looks like it was replaced as soon as it failed, which is certainly an oddity. That almost never happens. There would have been something attached up here. Maybe it was an outboard battery for the previous motherboard. Hard to tell. It's got some cache installed. I don't know how much. Probably not very much. The interesting thing about this, though, is that the system I replaced it with was a Pentium 166, I believe. And I had to disable the cache on that in order to get it to actually work properly in that application, because the motor functions were fine, but the actual light on the camera, the flasher, would not go off. And then when you close the program, it would go off several times in rapid-fire succession, indicating it was caching those. So I'm kind of intrigued by that. This would have probably been a 286, because this board here, the disk controller card, is a 16-bit ISA card, which you would not have seen in an XT class system. They would have all been 8-bit slots. Let's see if we can figure out who manufactured this controller board. I can't really tell, and I'm bending up my power supply in order to try and figure it out. The big chip here would tell me, but of course I can't read what it says. But the interesting thing about this is that this is still the old disk controller. This is an MFM drive controller, plus floppy. It's obviously got the floppy controller on it as well. I don't think this would have originally had a 3.5-inch floppy drive in it, but it does now. I'm actually going to replace that drive because the faceplate colors don't match, and that kind of bothers me. And it's something that I can certainly deal with. It's just a 3.5-inch floppy. It shouldn't be that difficult to figure out. The other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pull out this video card. There's nothing wrong with the video card, but the problem is that it is a CGA, maybe an EGA at best, video board, and I don't have any of my 9-pin TTL monitors over here, so I'm going to have to go ahead and swap that out. Plus, I mean, let's be honest, what's the deal with having an old 8-bit EGA video card and a 386? That's kind of pointless. So I got a Paradise card sitting over on the other side of the room that I'm going to go ahead and throw in this. And I also have a SCSI disk controller that I'm going to go ahead and throw into this. And hopefully, I'll actually be able to get a SCSI disk working in this, because I think that that would probably be better than throwing an MFM drive in here. Although I certainly could do that too. I have an old mini-scribe drive sitting around that maybe I should actually put to use. But I'm going to have to pull out that floppy drive, replace it. I'll probably have to pull out both floppy drives in order to get the hard drive installed. Unfortunately, I had the drive rails for this machine, or I'm sorry, for the disc down there, the 5 1/4 hard drive that was installed in this. If you remember way back, you could probably actually find it, but that Seagate ST225 diagnosis video, that was actually the drive out of this computer. So, anyway, I don't remember what all is hooked up for controls on this. I think maybe the turbo LED, maybe the hard drive LED. I know power's not hooked up. I'm going to have to probably extend the wires on this or replace this motherboard with something that's maybe a little bit more compatible with the case. I've been thinking about putting that MB VLSI 286 board in here and then putting that this board in the 286 case, because I think that it would probably fit a little bit better. That 286 board is kind of large for that for another case. I'm probably going to also have to replace those batteries because I don't know if they're actually still good. Okay, we've got it going now. Got the cable routing sort of figured out. And I've even got it plugged in. That floppy drive was a real pain to try and actually get hooked up. I don't know why. The upper one. I don't know why. There really was no excuse for it, and it's probably backwards now that I've gone through all that. Let's see what it does. Run setup utility, F1 to resume. F1 just goes straight into setup. With the hard drive spin up there. I guess this is permanently in turbo, because the turbo switch is not hooked up, so it's probably the reset that's hooked up. Hard disk C type. Yeah, I don't know. It's got a SCSI drive in it. Although it looks like it kept some of the settings. Only 4 megs of RAM, though. Actually, that's 3 megs of RAM. No, it'll be 4, roughly. Roughly speaking. I think it's managed to auto-set and auto-configure. Right to CMOS and exit. Let's see what it does. Okay, Adaptec SCSI select. It found the hard drive. That's SCSI ID 5 for some reason. Oops. No, we're on basic. System halted, and we've gone into 40 column mode for some reason. So, promising start. We are getting somewhere. I thought the reset switch was hooked up. Maybe not. There's definitely something on that disc. I'd have to hook up the hard drive LED to that controller. And yeah, so that's definitely booting off of whatever, or trying to boot off of whatever's on that disk. So, well, I'm at a stopping point for the time being. I gotta get my DOS disks from work, because apparently the copy of DOS that I had sitting here has gone missing. I have no idea where it could have gone. You know, there's not very many places. There's a spider trying to drop in on my computer. You need to go away. Come on, go away. Hey, get out of here. I'll sit on you. Oh, now it's going to go into the power supply. Anyway, digression. This thing, I'm going to have to get my DOS disks from work, because I don't know where my DOS disks that were here went. They were in one of my containers of disks. They're not there now, so I don't really lose things like that, so I really have no idea where they could have gone. So we'll revisit this in a future video, but it is up and running. I know that the hard drive is functioning with the SCSI controller. The only thing I really need to do is I do need to replace the disk controller with a newer one. Perhaps one that's got IDE on it. I don't know. But I'm also going to have to figure out the connectors for the front panel, reset, turbo, all that stuff. I think there's a jumper that somebody has installed. Or maybe not. Oh yeah, you can see it there. There's a jumper that somebody has installed over the turbo switch connection, so this thing is running in turbo all the time. Now, what that actually means, if that means that it's running in slow mode, or if that means that it's actually running in fast mode, I don't know. I don't know what the BIOS setup is set to. But this is functional, so I can conclude this video. But before I go, I have one more thing, because somebody is probably going to yell at me because I'm not going to do anything to park the hard drive heads. Well, you might be surprised to learn that this hard drive has auto parking heads. A lot of these older hard drives have auto parking heads. More of them than you might think. If this were a Seagate ST225, yes, I would have to park the hard drive heads, because they don't do it automatically. This ST296N from Seagate does. Listen to this when I flip the switch off. That is the head parking in action. Thanks for watching, and if you've got any comments, feel free to leave them below.